spawning in the northeast, playing as the Roos. The first time we were seeing the Roos. Good thing it's in the finale. It is Baltune, and spawning in the southwest, playing as the Ottoman Empire. It is XFactorLive. Now, got to talk about Roos a little bit, because Roos is a civ that's near and dear to my heart. It's my favorite civ to play. I'm very interested in what Baltune is doing with this build order. Usually it's only two. To a hunting cabin, then one makes house, one makes a lumber camp, and then they both go to a tree. This one's using 4. Could be a little bit of because there's a sheep there already. You can quickly make that hunting cabin and then just go ahead and take that sheep down anyway. So that's just those little intricacies of optimizing your play, which Baltune seems to do a good job of. Does have a second scout come out of the hunting cabin, and his third scout he will be making out of a hunting cabin instead of going for that quick second scout out of the town center. Makes 2 in the hunting cabin instead, which doesn't delay villager production, and at the same time makes sure you get 3 scouts. Now, casting Roos gets a little bit difficult sometimes because of the bounty not being visible here, so probably at the end of Dark Age, I'll only do this once. At the end of Dark Age, you have to exit caster mode, see the bounty, and then we'll kind of take it from there. But he's doing a good job at getting these. It does get some wolves in the background as well. These wolves really add up. That extra 25 gold, it does help the Roos player that the wolves aren't endlessly carryable throughout the map. Now that they're in a fixed aura of area compared to similar to a boar, the wolves are easily being taken up by these Roos scouts, and does end up getting this deer patch as well. You can hear the sheep bells going off over and over again. Just having 3 scouts means that you're going to get most of the sheep, and X Factor choosing not to make a second scout. If he did make a second scout, obviously he would have a little bit of a deficit in the economic side of things. But because he only has 1 scout, a lot of these wolves are really ripe for the taking for Baltune, to the point where he can get wheelbarrow if he chooses to, which he does. He's got to be well over 200 at this point. And when we're looking at a Roos player, we got to be talking about our pork products on the map. These boar having a plus 75 bounty. We have 1. It's pretty close to a gold mine, pretty close to berries, but this one, look at this spot. A little bit closer to the Ottomans, but right near a wood line, right near a stone mine, right near a gold vein. Seems like a pretty good one to me if you get a nice hunting cabin, or maybe even a town center if he chooses to. And it looks like town center is what Baltune is going for, putting 5 on a mining camp. I'm gonna get some of that stone. For the Roos, what made them so powerful in Season 2 was the fact that they can just get their 2 tickets, buy their stone, and then get up the second town center quicker than probably any other civ at the time. Now, because those town centers being 350 stone, they gotta do a little bit of stone mining themselves. And at this time, when you're waiting for that golden gate to get produced anyway, you could get enough here, get your 150 stone, get the ticket, but because you're taking more villagers to do that, you don't necessarily have the wood. So there's a little, it's a little wonky in terms of the macro side of it. But we'll see if he does go for a boar or his second town center placement. Now it looks like Ottomans on the other side. We've only got 1 villager going to stone, so he might be trying to do just some more military school kind of thing. This first Dark Age Spearman making its way around the edge of the map, getting some cheeky hits off that villager being at about half. But Baltune getting the 200 that he needs from that stone, and then we'll be able to just use 1 ticket and buy the gold. But now that he's going up to feudal age, and feudal age will be completed, I'm going to do a quick bounty check. And Baltune is at 350, which is very good for a Roos player, and that's without the boar. If he's able to, even just in feudal age, or late feudal age or castle age or something like that, if he has a knight going by or something like that, taking both of these boar means he's gonna be at 500. And a Roost player at 500 bounty is a very rare sight this day and age. His first military production building is the archery range, which, you know, there's a couple Dark Age Spearmen that are raining havoc. I get it. Also, it's going to help protect a little bit as you see this waypoint going more south. It's going to protect a little bit if he wants to go for that second town center in a rather difficult place to defend. He does have the wood for it. Waiting for a little bit of that trickle of gold and waiting for that second ticket to come in, and then he will be as right as rain. To drop that second town center whenever he wants, and with good timing, because he is running out of some of these food sources here, and he pulled exactly 8 plus 3. So with the pulling of all those villagers, you got to be thinking maybe some boar action here, and does have these deer also, so this is an excellent town center placement. XFactor, on the other hand, being the Ottoman Empire, getting their blacksmith, making sure that military unit production rate is going up, trying to get that snowball, trying to pack as much snow as he can in there. And what seems to be maybe a little bit of delay in trying to get a second town center. Because as of right now, only 4 on food. Just doing that consistent villager pumping. So it looks like he's going for it, but it's going to be a lot more delayed than the Roost Town Center that just went up at about 646. Baltune doing the very correct thing in pulling that boar right next to the town center, making the scout tank some of that damage, and that boar will be going down with no harm to the villagers with plus 75 gold, and now he was at 350. Now he's at 425, so not necessarily at the 500 yet. Ottomans trying to mass up a little bit of military strength, has their meter. We can hear the bongos. The power, the sound of music, you know? Adding that little bit of extra power, that 15% attack speed. Really good for the Ottomans in all of the battles that they take, and it makes them as powerful as they are in Feudal Age. Baltune actually going for a 1-1-1 in terms of military production, does go with an archery range, has a stable pumping out really nice, and going with the barracks at the same time. Now, it seems as though with this it's more so to defend maybe this second town center area. It doesn't look like he's going for an all-out kind of feudal aggression. Based on how many villagers he has on wood, at this point I kind of, well, now that the second archery range is coming in, maybe we'll see a little bit of aggression. Second town center up for Ottomans. Just recently, maybe about 10 seconds ago. We'll be starting to pump out villagers and stop and control the bleeding of that second town center going up a little earlier. For how much outside Gaia food resources that Baltune has, he does have this boar. He does have all of these deer carcasses in the back, so he's pretty safe in the food department, not counting these berries. Might we see maybe a little bit of Castle Age idea? He does have 6 villagers on gold. Is that to sustain knights, to continue some feudal pressure, or is that to go up to Castle Age? And it looks like he's massing up his units over here in the Stealth Forest, which is a rather good idea. Does have 1 knight and a couple scouts, so it's going to help him out in that department. Now, if he does take this fight, I feel like it would be rather difficult for him. Doesn't have any spearmen over here, and most of the, actually all of the Sipahi for X-Factor are here, all 3 of them, so that could produce a little bit of problem for him. Plus, with the meta there having that increased speed, how good that is with archers is really the best. But now with this little bunch of, I'd say, 5-ish archers coming up here isn't going to help him too much. Now a 3rd archery range. Okay, I get it. It's aggression time. Blacksmith coming in for Baltune as well, going to get some of those upgrades that are going to help him out. Now, I don't know if Baltune has scouted this second town center. It looks like with this scout there that he has. So he might be massing up this little bit of offensive to try to take down the second town center and maintain an economic stronghold in this game. one thing that I do want to mention for Baltune is how well he's using his resources right now, how well he's macroing. All of his resources staying essentially below 200 at all times. XFactor doing pretty much the same thing. Doing an excellent job at making sure they're producing out of everything. Has all of the military schools that he needs. And look at all of those lines. Just pumping units out consistently. Both of which going for just Sipahi out of the military school, so he has a trickle of that and out of the stable. But he's going for archers and spearmen as well. The difference is for Rus, instead of the Sipahi, they're knights. So we're going to see if XFactor has enough spearmen to really take this fight. And for me, for how many knights he has based on how many spearmen, I want to say no. He does have enough archer mass to pick off those spearmen if he chose to. And now that he sees what that mass is and what the strength of this Ottoman army is, and most of it being archers, the Rus archers are going to be able to pick off those spearmen. Now these archers for the Rus need to get out of the way, making sure they don't get a good surround. And it looks like the spearmen for the Rus not being micro just yet, so getting some really good hits out of those. And the knights are going to be able to tank a lot of that Sipahi fire. XFactor going to have to back up. One thing XFactor did not do, did not target the meta after those spearmen. I think targeting the meta would have been really important for him, just to make sure they're not getting that attack speed bonus, and it looks like he tried to at the end but didn't quite get there. So I would say that was a pretty decent skirmish with no clear winner. Now with economic count 53 to 50, both of those town centers again continuing to pump. XFactor adding another military school, which is probably from his vizier point to add an extra one. And more production buildings from Baltune are getting churned out. A 4th archery range, a 5th archery range. Blacksmith getting the iron undermesh already has the +1 damage. If we take a look at his XFactor's +1 damage, going for that +1 ranged armor as well. So both of these players doing their respective quote-unquote all-in strategies, and the Ottomans are pretty famous for how good they are at it. But let's see what these knights coming in, getting the charge on the Sipahi, which are going to be really helpful. Archers trying to get those Ottoman spearmen down so those knights have free reign on the Sipahi. Not that many spearmen in favor of Baltune. There's really only a couple here that did get microed down. The Sipahi are doing ravaging work against those Rus archers. But now that the Sipahi and spearmen are down, it's basically all of these archers with no meter. The meter going down. These knights having some reign over the archers and instead point their way towards the villagers. Get a couple worker kills. And again, this is a rock meeting a hard place. Both players are going to mass up. All of them again. And I think Baltune, just because of how many production buildings he has, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4th stable coming out. And the fact that he has the ability, using his Golden Gate very well, he has 33 economic units on food at this point to 32 of the Ottomans. The issue is for Baltune, he does have that little bit of extra food gathering rate, so it's going to help him pump knights out. And I think for Baltune, having a couple extra spearmen in these fights, just making sure the Sipahi don't run ravaging all over your Rus archers could be very beneficial. Both of which continue to look at each other. XFactor trying to come out, but just because Baltune is getting this spawn over here in this area, it's going to be difficult for him to back up. But Sipahi getting free reign on those archers. And Sipahi, you're going to take a decent amount of those archers down before the knights can take the Sipahi down. They don't have that much DPS compared to a spearman, so it's going to be a little difficult. Not many spearmen on either side. 0 for Baltune. A lot of the spearmen for the Ottomans are trying to get picked apart, but Baltune does not have the one-tap potential for those spearmen anymore, and those knights are getting eaten up just because of how many archers are left. This was to me an overwhelming win for XFactor, making Baltune retreat. XFactor now can move up a little bit. and Baltune will be continuing to remass with the amount of archers. Now, just based on how many archery ranges he has, he's able to remass rather quickly, as it looks like XFactor kind of staggered a little bit on that military production. I'm not sure if, just because of how much gold he has, if it's more of a macro issue or if he's thinking about Castle Age. I guess we can't really completely decipher, but Baltune is now getting to this point in the weak point of the Rus where they're going to start really eating up a lot of these Gaia food resources. There's a deer patch over there. They're going for berries, so their food per minute's going to drop a little bit, and we'll see how they can do in terms of production. But a lot of archers here on the back now. 31 archers, and now Baltune has equaled XFactor's archer count when it was maybe about a minute ago at 6. And continuing to keep going at Feudal Age. Making these knights, really pressing his head against the wall, knowing that knights are the superior unit to Sipahi. So he feels like he could get some really good damage with these early knights. We just haven't seen it materialize yet. Both of these players in terms of economic count, obviously rather similar. Not many worker kills on either side. The only difference with Baltune getting that town center up just a little bit quicker. And now really fighting for these outside Gaia food resources, that berry bush out in the back. These berry bushes over here. The deer pretty much gone. Of what looks like on both sides, this deer almost gone. A couple carcasses left, but that's pretty much it. XFactor now saying with all of this feudal battles, they're like, enough of this garbage. We're going up with the MIA. We need some free military units. You might as well make them free. A little bit of an increased timing, but still free. And I think something like a Mangonel could do very well against this archer mass, because Baltune is continuing to pile on in the feudal aspect. And now that XFactor hit castle, Baltune's got to be thinking, well, he wasn't making military for a little while, so that's got to be your time to strike, right? And here we go. This area of 8 knights and a scout up here. Looks like more knights are trying to come into the fray. I think he's just saying control all military. He knows he's on a timing window at this point. The military academies will continue to pump out those Castle Age knights, those Castle Age men-at-arms. So he has got to move. He says, I don't even have time for a ram. He deletes it. He's going in. This outpost looks like it will quickly go down. A little bit of static defenses, just causing a little bit of delay. And also getting a nice little night raid over here on the west side with a lot going on in the north. We'll take down a couple villagers in the process, but here we go. Big fight coming in. Mostly knights here as a front line, and there are a decent amount of spearmen. And actually, XFactor deciding to back up here. Military strength for the Rus in terms of how many archers they have is rather massive. He's trying to bait these spearmen out. Excellent micro from Baltune. He's trying to bait the spearmen out to get to the front line so the Rus archers can easily pick them off. It looks like they did a pretty good job of that, but these spearmen are now in the Castle Age variety, where it's very difficult to end up taking them down and taking them down efficiently. They have so much bonus damage against those knights, and there really are not a lot of knights left in this battle, but Baltune continuing to pump them out over and over again. You see all of these knight carcasses, but there's still 15 on the battlefield for him. He knows this is put up or shut up time. There is no Castle Age that's going to be for Baltune. If he decides to go to Castle Age, he will lose. So he is moving. There's a lot of Castle Age units coming up here with some knights, but because of how long it takes the military school to actually make them, Baltune is going for more of the quantity over quality approach. And for right now, it's actually working. Some crossbowmen in the back. And XFactor actually calls it. Baltune goes for the Feudal Age all in with the Rus, saw the Castle Age, knew he had to throw everything he had down there, and did it so well to the point where XFactor called it not that many worker kills. You know, he was still hovering in like the high 70s-ish while Baltune hit 100. Remember, a lot of his units he's getting for free, but that fight from the military side of it was insane. I mean, X Factor was waiting for those Castle Age units to come up, and what's so great with Rus is having those early knights. It gives you a little bit of leeway against Castle Age units. They make Castle Age men-at-arms. Your early knights can do a decent amount of damage against them. If they make Castle Age knights, usually they won't have as many as your Feudal Age knights, so sometimes you can get a quantity over quality kind of advantage. And it looks like X Factor was trying to get some crossbowmen in the fray too, but never really had enough, as we can see military count being at about 8 to 7 at the end of it. So game 1 for the Rus, and Baltune will take that 1 zip, and I hope, as we see it here, for game 2, hopefully X Factor brings back maybe just a little something. Spawning in the south, playing as the Holy Roman Empire, we have Baltune here spawning in the north, playing as the Chinese. It is XFactorLive, and I believe he is quite the China player. So taking a look at Mediterranean again, just to orient you to our map that maybe you haven't seen some of the past Mediterranean games casted. Map is just about 35-ish% water. Decent amount of deep water fish here that are the mainstay of this game, as this map, excuse me. As you can see, both of these civs going for their dock rather quickly. The Chinese always getting their dock up just that much quicker because of how quickly they're able to build. It looks like X Factor going for his, and because of that, we'll get his first fishing boat. Let's have a little bit of a think as to why these two civilizations, as they're getting their fishing economies underway, as to why they have such good win rates on this map. And a lot of the time, it doesn't stem down to the navy itself or the units itself that are actually on the water. It's about their land economies that are here. The prelate being able to inspire these workers to gather resources 40% faster. They basically get a wheelbarrow included, being able to carry 40% more resources. It makes their wood economy rather good, because with that wood line being so variable in terms of how frequently you're building your lumber camps and all of that kind of stuff, there's a lot of walking speed, or there's a lot of walking time when it comes with getting wood. So being able to carry 40% more resources means you're that much efficient, much more efficient than your counterpart. On the flip side, for the Chinese, as I mentioned just a little bit before in the last Chinese game that we've had on Mediterranean, just because of the fact that they have the Imperial Officer, the IO, means that they are a huge contender on water. Instead of dropping off 10 food, they drop off 12, so having that little bit of extra carrying capacity, and being able to put more villagers on wood because you're able to gather taxes, so you don't need as many on gold. So you can bolster your wood economy by the transitive property, so to speak. But now economic counts at 17 to 17, and hopefully, based on these economies, we might see an age up shortly. A little bit of delayed feudal age, just because going for navy means going for wood right off the bat. So it's going to be a little bit more delayed. But about the navy that I didn't get into too much in the first Mediterranean game, but we could talk about it just a little bit. Big changes in Season 3, obviously. If you're not somebody who watches AoE 4 on a daily basis, like I do. 3 different ships coming out of either dock. Galley, an archer ship. Hulk, a spring-old ship, and obviously an incendiary ship. In China, they are called junks, but they are not junks. I promise you, they have the exact same stats as the Galley and Hulk counterpart. Basically, rock, paper, scissors. You know, the spring-old ship does increase damage to archer ship. Archer ship increases damage to explosive junk. Explosive junk increase damage to spring-old ship or the war junk. So we do have a little bit of rock, paper, scissors matchup going on here, which is a lot like the land units in feudal age of horseman, spearman, archer. So they tried to add that to a naval perspective. A lot of the times you'll see how important micro is in a lot of these naval battles in feudal, just because getting those explosive ships on those springald ships really could make you win not only the map, but in Baltune's case, the qualifier, if he does that correctly. Baltune going up with the Aachen Chapel. Obvious place to build it, making sure he gets a lot of that wood line, and it creates a little bit of a drop-off point for that extra wood line. Doesn't need another lumber camp, so he's able to make ships as nicely as he wants to. It has a second dock a little bit more on the western side. XFactor's Chinese dock a little bit more on the eastern side. Having these docks spread out just a little bit like this, and maybe a little bit more like Baltune has them, just makes it so if you are at a disadvantage, you might be able to get a sneaky explosive ship out there. One of the advantages for Baltune is going to be how quickly he is getting up to feudal age. Chinese is going to catch up a little bit with that Imperial Academy and the fact that these guys can build like no other. So it'll get there, but the Aachen Chapel will be first, meaning the first actual damage dealing ships in feudal age are going to come by the way of the HRE. Now, depending on how much time it takes them to actually get there and start to rain havoc on some of this is yet to be seen. But first one coming out, Hulk, is your springald ship. So we'll see how much damage that can actually do. And sometimes your choice in the beginning of feudal age really makes all the difference, because if XFactor starts with an archer ship immediately, could spell problems for him, as Baltune goes with a little bit of one each. Has some Hulks coming out here, has some archer ships coming out here, and what I would assume is that XFactor is going to go with kind of the same thing. So he's got a war junk on this side and an archer ship on this side in rather predictable fashion. Now, first ships coming out for the HRE, and think about how long this is going to take. Looks like that war junk and that archer ship will come out just in time. Trying to do a little bit of disruption here. Getting some good hits on that war junk, and again, if you take a look, because I'm just going to scan really quickly back and forth, these ships are no different. They're just named differently based on historical reference. But the fish for China being a little bit more out there for the HRE, it looks like, based on the map. And what's nice is with XFactor, or with Baltune getting his ships out first, meaning he could take the battle to XFactor instead. Does have an archer ship in the back, making sure that that explosive junk doesn't get too much of a hit. And it looks like got a decent amount with 106 damage still there. Their archer ship going down, which means that demolition ship has free range. Got a decent hit. Fishing boat going down and making a small shipwreck, but not necessarily a big one. These war junks staying alive. Baltune's got to back up. And you see how important the micro is with those explosive junks. Making, and the demo ships for the HRE. Making sure you're getting good hits on these guys. And really delaying food economy. Third dock coming up for XFactor. And obviously direct supervision on these lumber camps, making sure he's getting as much wood as possible. 17 on wood for XFactor, 21 for Baltune. All of these guys are inspired, continuing to make lumber camps. And I would say in terms of wood economy, HRE has had the advantage for some time now. We can see it translating to military advantage with a decent amount of springald ships, 6 to XFactor's 2. Now continuing on that wood economy boost, all Baltune needs to have, if he has enough ships, make sure that these explosive junks don't hit all of your springald ships. You're in a good spot. And you should be able to carry through for the rest of the game, because your military count will be continuously higher. Baltune doing the good thing in adding archer ships. I think he knows the only way he can surefire lose this game is if all of those springald ships go down. If he has enough galley ships, because these galleys do an AoE effect, as you can see all of these group of arrows, those 5 arrows going in. If he's able to get hits on those explosive junks kind of at the same time, make multiple blow up at the same time, that could be largely beneficial to him. It looks like even more wood villagers, 26, 25, 30 to 25. Don't see anything in terms of land military production, just doing a quick scan out of both of these players. So land, not a concern to them whatsoever. It looks like Baltune just adding his 3rd dock now. I think the one thing in this particular matchup, even though he doesn't have as many demo ships, the archer ships are going to hopefully have enough to back him up. Looks like only about 3 demo ships. Because XFactor only has a couple of these junks, I think he has a weak point. I'm not sure if Baltune's going to be able to exploit that or not, depending, but continuing to make those archer ships, trying to fill that hole. And a fishing ship, you know, an extra little bit of food economy, never hurt nobody, right? But here we go, Baltune trying to take the battle to XFactor. We have good Hulk things, and the explosive junks are actually going to hit some of the explosive ships. A lot of these explosive junks not getting any real good hits whatsoever. Excellent micro by Baltune, getting those galleys to hit those explosive junks. And now XFactor has to back up 7 Springold ships, Hulks on the side of Baltune, 5 on the favor of XFactor. XFactor knows he's behind. He's trying to get cheeky with some of these explosive jumps. Archer's ship does see it, does get some good hits on it. This is the thing, you got to keep your head on a swivel, making sure those Springold ships don't get hit. And Baltune's doing a good job of that. Does have a lot of injured ships though. Is going to end up backing up just a little bit because of it. That Hulk's sitting at 5. And if this thing can escape with its life, some of the really top pro players, and one of the things that I will say that Baltune is trying to do a good job of, is trying to escape with that 5 health ship. And on the flip side, just before I did that scan, the only problem was I was scanning in the wrong area. Look where that barracks is. All the way on the east side, a little proxy barracks Baltune is doing. XFactor did not see this. Look at the amount of worker kills. It's 22 to 0. Those 3 men-at-arms, one can argue, those 3 men-at-arms won the game. Because now he can just spiral with this wood economy. Continue to pump out ships out of all of his docks, and you know Baltune is going to keep the initiative, try to keep that pressure as much as possible. That explosive junk gonna get a good shot off. That's still 5 health Hulk. I hope that's the same one. But continuing to look at all of these villagers going down. And we talked about how micro intensive these naval battles are. And it looks like XFactor's APM was taxed at that point. A lot of those villagers going down. He knew that was the end in terms of economy. Baltune just could have kept massing. Look at all of these docks he had. He just could have kept massing all of his units, and because of that, Baltune's going to take the 2-0 over XFactorLive and winning Genghis Khan Legacy #1. With XFactor taking second, good meta points for both players. And obviously, I mean, this doesn't, as much as I enjoy doing post-game analysis, this, you don't need it for this one. It was, he had men-at-arms in Chinese's base and killed villagers. It could have been an APM tax. It could have been, you know, a multitude of different reasons as to why he didn't see it. But you're never going to come back from that. And losing that naval side as well would make it incredibly challenging for him to ever come back. Even if he was, you know, he could have 3TC songed or something like that. It still wouldn't have had the time, right? So, fantastic showing.
We want to thank our MetaPlays website subscribers. Your contribution helps us keep the project sustainable. As we reach higher subscription goals, you are helping us cover more and more behind-the-scenes costs, such as video editing. Check out our subscription page using the link in the description, and remember to collect your perks. We will see you the next time.